Morning. All I am happy. Good afternoon. This is Jack. I am the host for this webinar series. This is the last one for 2022. We're hoping that you have been coming all along and that these webinar series have benefited you with information, food for thought, and use some of our recordings, and feel free to share them. I look forward to putting together all of our webinar series, the list in our newsletter, and I will send it to you all. And you can click at the central playlist of both, actually, 2020, 2021, and 2021, 22. And you can use those resources and discuss it amongst yourselves. Again, we will send you a survey for your feedback and input, any ideas, and we will have our core curriculum and outreach. Knowledgeable, skilled, what's called core university. We have many different topics. So don't feel, does CSD have this or not? Feel free to go ahead, contact us. Maybe that's a topic that we can see what we can do for 2022-23 year. Now with this, the topic, before we go on with this webinar, I have a few additions. If you've noticed something today, it's captioned. Accessible for all right now with both interpreter voices, and you're able to read it also. Please share on the chat if things are going well. This will become permanent for the fall for the 22-23 year. In the chat, feelings, thoughts, ideas, opinions, and then the Q&A is for questions specifically for the presenters to answer those comments. This is a recording. And now we're moving on with this topic. Brenda Call and Marlon, we call him Lon Kuntz, will be presenting about if the students know about the assessment results, will that help the students work harder in school? And that is the topic, unique. And I will let them go on with their experience and how this topic started to work with the teachers. And I believe the authenticity of the data, so starting something new, the assessment, something new, the studying of this or that, and how that impacts the student's performance and the student's motivation and the teacher's knowledge of working with the students. And I love that kind of thing. And they are perfect people to present this. So Brenda Call, our curriculum specialist teacher with math, Lon Kuntz, our student outcome specialist, studying data, and also part of the ASL assessment team. So I'm happy to have you both here. And thank you for your time. And I will turn it over to you. And again, thank you. Thank you, Jack, Brenda said. Thank you, Jack. Ready, Lon? Yes. Okay. This workshop, the title says everything. I'm Brenda Call. I used to be a middle school teacher for many years before I transferred over to the core department and became a curriculum specialist in math, K through 12. I still teach middle school classes from time to time. Lon? I'm Marlon Kuntz. Everybody calls me Lon. I'm an outcome specialist. I started this year. I recently retired from Gallaudet University, where I have been working. Brief history of how all of this started. In my classroom, while I was a middle school teacher full-time, we did the MAP testing, measurement of academic process. We call it MAP. There's other tests, whatever they are, but I would sit with the students and explain their scores. And it's important to help them understand what it means to have the score and own it and think about it and how to help them include that and develop their work academically and become teachers. It became a teacher-student conference. And I would show them the scores, what they see, we would move it around and help them go, oh, okay, that's my information. And we worked on that process. Later, I shared it with other math teachers and they liked that idea. And as a department, we supported training them on how to observe and interpret. And then that led to the department, a department-wide, including other classes in English, ASL, social studies, whatever, as a whole. And we worked together, which was very nice. All that knowledge and then what to do with it. I worked with Dr. Michelle Burke at the California Education Research Association, and we presented that in 2013. Thinking again, visiting that information, working with high school. Reading through literature and reviewing information, it's important for the students to self-assess and understand the process of information and do self-analysis, including with the teacher, giving them their scores, and then having a conversation of that process, and then doing self-analysis and thinking about, helps them to internalize that process and be more motivated. And they have, what I have under my control, so that the test isn't so overwhelming. That was the goal, to clarify, working on a goal and then doing well and becoming proficient in that area. And learning, then they have intent. So with that self-process, the students are empowered when the tests and the assessments come up. If it's a formal test, a state required test, and it increases how they show. And it shows that, yes, it does increase. Other studies discuss more in depth about motivation and the concept behind it, really reframing it. Motivation with internal desire and wanting to learn. And it includes feeling good about themselves. I can do it. I know I can. And then they can process and work and self-motivate, and then try again if they fail, and then they can succeed and go with that and have a goal. Overall, obviously, the conversation, the process, the motivation, it all hits together. So Brenda and I were discussing, again, bringing that and spreading it through the high school, and what the goals and the questions, what we need to learn from the students, and then gathering data and processing that data. How the teachers can share that information in the right way so that the students can be inspired and empowered. How teachers can make that connection between the MAP results and what the student needs to focus on, and make those connections. And that will help with that process. And then the students' MAP scores can help them be more motivated and continue to work through the years. The goal on the current project, wanting students to increase motivation, doing well for the next test and the next one and the next one. And you can see the teachers using the MAP results being motivating the students, giving guidance in the classroom and instruction, specifically in math. How did we collect the data? We surveyed the students in high school. We collected the data, how they interpreted their scores. Also, we asked the teachers, how do you share that information with the students? A focus meeting with the teachers to review and discuss, what they find in the results. The students surveyed to give you an idea of what the questions look like. This is what they look like. You can go ahead and read that. We kept it student friendly, as student friendly as possible. At the same time, it helped us to know them. Some of the questions we asked the teachers. It's important to collect as much data as possible. The focus groups. We focused on high school math teachers, collecting their responses, and then the student survey results. And then we discussed ideas. How can we increase the net MAP scores with a discussion and thoughts? How do we frame this with the students? Do we introduce reviews? IXL, and I'll explain about that more a little later in the program. That's designed to help meet each student's needs and raise their scores. So now it's my turn. And then I asked the survey, the groups, and all the interaction and what we learned. And these are the results. The students were asked, and I'm not sharing, this is key results, which were interesting. The students like math. It was kind of half and half, which is normal. The teachers were surprised that that many students liked math. That was important information. But even though, their attitudes to math and liking to learn, or whether or not they like, most of them, felt it was important to know math, and then working at it. And most said yes. Do you know why you need to learn math? And it was very important. Do you care about good grades? The students said yes, their attitude, learning math and good grades were important. One thing about the students that was interesting, did the teacher let you know your scores? And most of the students said yes. Did you remember it? Many didn't. And they forgot that information. Giving me the information, what do I do with it? So do you share the scores and expand on it? It was kind of half and half. Do the students really want to know? And be more motivated to know, and it would be worth sharing that information, meaning you have to explain it more. The teachers during their survey. They felt it's important to share the results and the scores. What's the reason behind it? And then there was different comments made. Give them the score helps to motivate the students. And they were, oh, okay. And then maybe they'll work harder. And they could use the score. See this score? Come on, let's work harder. And then they can work harder. So the teachers noticed the importance of sharing that information. But at the same time, some teachers think giving them the scores, what good is it going to do? If the student knows the test is done and then they get the score, again, why are we going to tell them again? And they weren't sure. They learned that they really were interested to work on their progress. And then were they just saying yes? They weren't sure. If we share it, is it worth it? If they're interested, fine, we'll share that information, we'll discuss it. In the past, it was like they weren't really interested. So the teachers weren't sure, based on their perspective, if they really cared about learning math or not. And that, is fitting with the students' point of view as their question. So teachers were surprised. So with the survey, it shows that the students cared about math more than the teachers thought. We had classes that we shared the results, and they were like, oh, really? Seriously? That's a lot of students that wanted to improve and take math more seriously. But sometimes how the students behave in class doesn't show that, according to their behavior. So, but that's what the survey said. So it was a little bit of a wake-up call for the teachers. The teachers' observations. They should use the MAP scores more often. It's there as a pushing, motivating guide for the students to learn and prepare, and how they can increase their learning and achievement in math. It's important to continue the discussion on how to better communicate and share. So some teachers weren't sure. We didn't want the kids to be depressed if they had a low score, so they just weren't sure. Sometimes it takes a little bit. It's important to discuss it and techniques on how to reframe it and do it in a positive way so the students can move forward. So then they can understand it. For the intent, giving them the information is to give them the intent to understand it and internalize it. IXL, and then they kind of vaguely understood, but there was a variety of levels of knowledge or understanding or the value of IXL. And that was good news. Some maybe know what IXL is, some may not. It's on the internet, IXL.com. You can go there for more information. There's more than 11 million students that use it. It is a wonderful program. This is one of the examples we use in our school. Other may have similar programs, which is also great. IXL, thinking, what's the intent for? And it's set of mind that I excel. When you go in, it looks like this. You go into the skill plan, and you'll notice on the left side, there's a book. There's a math book. It's the student book. This is 7th grade. Next to that on the right, it says map, and you can click on that You would go in, the student's name would come up. I put CSD as the name of the student. It's a fake student. So then you notice math and the reading level, and they can click K through second. And then there's a drop down to second to fifth. And then you would click and you can feed in the scores on the math part. Critical thinking, number operations, measurements, geometry, and I think there's one more, statistic probability, and you can put all the scores in. You put them in on the left side, what it would look like. Other teachers can put in reading, other teachers can put in language scores. And then you create a study plan. And then on the right, it says success. You want to create another one, meaning you can do it for another student. What's the study plan look like? For each grade, it's all listed. So the student can go in and work on each of those. When they're done, ready for more advanced, at the bottom it says, I am ready for more, click, and it will upload. It's nice. You know, it's small windows. It's very nice. It's important to keep the study plan updated and checking it. If the students finish a session and, as we've explained, ready for more, and then they click. Going back to feeding in the scores, you can have the students sit with you. Let's look at your scores and put those in. That's better than developing a worksheet a long time ago, designing something, putting it in. It becomes a live paper. They can see the changes and their progress. Okay. So what we've discussed in summary so far, starting, setting it up, being ready, and setting up stages, and then kicking off and going with it in the fall for 1 year. So obviously the math teachers are aware. Brenda as the curriculum specialist and me as the outcome specialist, we all got together to work together and discuss the big focus on how the teachers can use IXL successfully, the coursework that is required. IXL can go in addition and more targeted to what the students need in accordance with their MAP scores and what levels they're in and how to improve. The scores in MAP, you know, have recommendations and things to focus on, and you can put those together in IXL to make sure that the students are doing well in that area and not add on. It's not to add on more work. There is the required curriculum that will remain the same. And these have, MAP scores has individual levels. So, you know, technically, how do you share and different strategies and share? And we're going to focus on that in the fall. And again, we will collect the data and do the MAP testing. We've already done that in the fall and in the spring. And we assess how much growth, how many increases, and do the scores. Now, next year will be different. We'll have more different treatments, more explanations, and more support, and see if it will make a difference in the student scores. That's the big question, and that's the intent. You know, we always give the MAP test, we have for years, and then giving the data, comparing it. Is there increases each year is what we're hoping to see. Next year, is there more increases than this current year? Also, we will interview teachers and individuals of their experience and share the scores with the students. Was it positive? Was it negative? Were the students resistant? Were they depressed? How? And then we can learn from that, from the individuals. And then ask the students again about their attitudes. Do you like math? You know, more of similar questions that before, and then maybe adding some more questions from their perspective, and then get an overall picture of the data for next year. So stay tuned for more reports from Brenda and myself. When a school gives a test, it's important to support the students planning for that test. They come to school for tests, you know. It's a wonderful topic right there. Jack? Hello. Yeah, okay. Any participants, do you have any thoughts or any questions you'd like to ask the presenters? You can use the Q&A. I see somebody raise their hand. Go ahead and type your question in the Q&A. I'll give you a little more time. Brenda, Lon, do you have any additional thoughts that's not part of the PowerPoint that you wanted to share? Brenda said yes. When we were developing the worksheets, they were very simple and cute. The students would fill out their scores, and it was set up as the fall semester. And then they would circle and pick their favorite color. Orange represented fall for the season, and then they would put the scores in. And then in the spring semester arrived, and they would take the map testing again, and they would gather their papers, and they would do spring in a different color, maybe green, and they would see how much growth they had had and how much they improved in each area. And the students would make notes on how they can work harder, maybe reviewing their math skills during the summertime, just different ideas. Then that changed to today in IXL, it comes up, it's perfect and it's ready. They can look at it. It has suggestions. It's less work for the teachers. They can have it ready. It's wonderful. Lon, anything you'd like to add? For clarifying more math questions, you know, it's on the computer, it's more technology friendly, and the students are progressing a lot with the information. You know, it's not only the scores, but the different things that all along, you know, there's been the growth and the changes in areas we need to focus on. And everything's there on the computer with technology. So that's an empowering way for the students to know, this is mine, this is what I need to do to achieve, succeed, and what areas do I need to focus on? instead of giving, a personalized list that they get, and then they can understand it and make that connection and know these things represent me, and then they can understand that. And if I do that, I can improve more, and they'll be more knowledgeable, and it's empowering. And the students can be in charge of their own progress with more communication, more motivation. You're giving me more and more work. Why are you giving me more and more work? And the kids would complain. So, okay, now they can say thank you and they can just go with it. So that's a different approach. It's more integrated, Brenda says. It's not on top of, it's integrated into. Big difference. Jack's saying, for the first time, if I understand, it's this kind of starting for the teachers to work with the students to get that kind of assessment, presentation. So we're wondering if it will become more of repetitive, feeding them information so the students will understand their goals, and the students can start to understand and appreciate more, meaning they'll be more likely to remember, more likely to ask the teacher, remember the assessment, what was my score, kind of questions. Any changes, am I improving? Before you just get the paper and you'd kind of put it away. So this repetition. So I'm wondering if the students will change their point of view and care more about it and respond differently. I'm just wondering. Brenda's saying, yes, in middle school, I noticed when we set up department trainings, and we would, 6th grade, come on, we'll all get together and we'll explain how to read and interpret their scores, and then give the printout from the map. And for each individual, and then they could put it in and look and respect the privacy, and own it and internalize that and then change it. It was several years ago. Now more IEP meetings, they always bring up the MAP scores, and the parent and the child are there and they can see that. And it's important for the student to understand what's happening in their meeting. Speaking of IEP students in the meetings, what age level should the students start being involved? Is it middle school age or high school? We encourage an elementary, 3rd grade and up. Lon's saying yes. Middle school, going on with the progress, and then COVID, and thinking, going back, high school, going back, and having it school wide, not only in math, but in other areas and other topics as well. Now I have a question for the audience who are watching, and you can use the chat to make comments. I'm curious, your viewpoint. If you run an IEP meeting, of your thoughts, do you include the students and explain about scoring systems, the map, or any other test scores? Just kind of curious. Seems everybody's thinking about it. One person commented, oh, absolutely. They need to know how they're doing in relating to the MAP score. That will definitely empower them. I agree. It's important that they own the scores. It's their education. And I think it helps when the students understand why the teacher is giving them this work. What is it for? Is it just busy work? Or does it have intent to actually help and learn and understand? It's designed to fit at their level. Not everybody's at the same level. The levels are all biased. And IXL is the reason that it shows that. and it fits my needs. And then what I do on here will help me continue, and be curious. Will they change how they want to learn? Will periodically they have meetings to discuss how they're doing? Maybe next map testing, it's all possible. Thinking about adding, a wintertime map test, school-wide wintertime. We do fall and spring, which is common, 2 times a year. But MAP allows us to do it periodically. I think fall, winter, and then spring is one possibility. So, waiting, kids having to wait until the spring, maybe something would come up. So we're working on that. It could be easy. And also MAP testing in math areas, for example, general math with grades, but also they have specific testing in math for algebra, geometry. They have different ones that we don't give to everybody. Some who want to learn it, why not have more knowledge for themselves? It would be better. We can see about that. Makes me think of how important the teachers' angst about giving them a low score. We have, letting go of the number. Where are you at? Instead of putting the benchmarks, 40%, 50%. No, it sounds very demeaning. Kind of I failed. Maybe it needs to be points to be more motivating, trying to get higher points, figuring out how to approach it with the students so that they can feel, more empowered and more positive. The MAP scores are universal, percentages aren't right or wrong. It's the number that shows your level, along with other within your grade, and people trying to beat that. We can't control that part of it, and that's not the intent. The students can compare it with themselves and frame it that way and discuss it that way and explain it. We will share first. I want you to understand this information and make the students more mature and how they react to that information, getting that information and then being depressed, or I'm a lousy student, I'm a pea brain, those things, and how we can work that out. So learning how the students can make strategies and, for different students, and being sensitive to those students, or, if there's no, improvement in grades, so the students can be more involved in how to interact and help the students become more mature and giving thought of their information and being, talking about their progress. And it's important to focus on that, and that we work with the math teachers on how to have those interactions. Wonderful. Brenda? With MAP, there's 4 or 5 different strategies that tell you your areas of strength. And that's positive. Areas to focus, meaning you need to work a little more. And we could use areas of strength, areas to focus. Before, I think we used to use the word weak areas. Now we changed that to focus. So trying to make it more and more positive, and today using positive vocabulary to bring them up. That's beautiful and a perfect point, yes. Are you looking at other assessments like for Lit and English, social studies, science, or are you focusing on math and tracking math and measurements? As the outcome specialist, I'm looking at all areas, science, math, reading, language. So Brenda already has the experience, so it was perfect for us to work together on this. It's a pilot study to learn in this one and then cover another area, but math will expand. And then we'll go to middle school, you know, and then we'll pull them back in. And then we'll go to elementary school, and as it will spread out to other areas. So we're starting small and then going from there, and figuring out what we can learn, figuring out different strategies and applying those in different areas. Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you for your time, sharing your expertise and how you put together and doing this kind of first study. So I look forward to hearing more next year and as it expands, and comparing your data to the first, you know, second and third years, how that's going to go. So I want to thank you both. I think thank you to the participants. I hope you enjoyed their presentation. And again, this is recording, so we will send this out. And thank you very much. Thank you, Brenda, Lon. Bye-bye, everybody. And thank you, interpreter. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.